So it's 5:30. We're gonna get, I'm gonna count you down 5 seconds and Missy will start recording then, okay? And 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1.
All right, good evening and welcome. This is Monday, September 23rd, 2024. It's 5:30 p.m. And this is the meeting of the Port of Olympia Commission. And as always, let's start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Tong, would you mind?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you very much. We have an agenda in front of us. Is there a motion to approve today's agenda?
Move to approve today's agenda.
Second.
I would like to make a motion to amend the agenda to move Deschutes Estuary Restoration Project interlocal agreement off of the consent calendar, please.
Okay, we have a motion to approve in a second, and now we have an amendment. We're motioning to amend the agenda by removing. Are we just removing the Deschutes Estuary Restoration?
Moving it to the action calendar. Or the action other, whichever is appropriate. Chris, would it be action or action? Action.
Okay, and did I hear a second? Yes, okay, we have a motion and a second to move from the consent calendar, the Deschutes Estuary Restoration Project interlocal agreement, move that from consent to action. Is there any further discussion on that?
I just think it's a significant investment from the Port of Olympia, and it's only been in front of the public once, and would like commissioners and public to have the opportunity to make any comments. And I don't think we need the presentation again.
So there's generally no public comment on action calendar, so
Oh,
is
well,
that a problem?
is it possible that we could take public comment on that?
Is there a reason we couldn't move it to action other?
Is there a reason we can't move it to action other, Chris?
I don't believe so. You could in your motion.
Yeah, well, if there's a desire to have public comment on then we should, I would recommend the action other, so.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah.
So, I would amend my motion to move the Deschutes Estuary Restoration Project interlocal agreement from the consent calendar to the action other calendar.
You still have a second? Okay. All right, so we have a motion and a second to amend today's agenda by removing the Deschutes Estuary Restoration Project interlocal agreement from consent calendar to action other calendar. Calling for the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we have an agenda. Thank you very much. We have a new person in the executive director chair, so oh no, it's Alex. Welcome back.
Thanks.
Yeah, welcome back. So now is your executive director report.
Hey, President Eyal, glad to be back. So lots of stuff has happened in the past few weeks. First, we've had a partnership with the Puget Sound Estuarium. We've kicked off 2 weeks of field trips and tours of the East Bay Peninsula. The tours are titled Estuary Life and Landforms, and they're available to 5th grade classes throughout the Olympia School District. And we're super excited to collaborate with the Estuarium to enhance our community's understanding of and connection to our natural environment. We had another tour. This was with Morningside. They are an organization that has a mission of providing training, coaching, and employment services that build self-sufficiency and self-esteem for people with disabilities. Port staff members Ben McDonald, Alexandra Schleter, and Taylor Lee shared insights about the port and also about job opportunities at the port. The port recently received a grant for zero emission vehicles at the airport. So the grant came from the Federal Aviation Administration. It's roughly $150,000. It's for the purchase of 2 zero-emission vehicles, as well as for the purchase and installation of a dual-port EV charging station at the airport. This is part of our continuing effort to improve our environmental stewardship and our sustainable practices at the port. Also wanted to note, we finished off our Movies at the Marina for the summer. It was our most successful movies event ever. We had nearly 400 community members come to the 2 movies, Hook and The Goonies. People gathered with blankets and chairs and enjoyed the beautiful weather and awesome evenings out in that incredible view and environment at Swantown Marina. Last Thursday and Friday, the Washington Public Ports Association held its 2024 environmental seminar, and our very own Director of Environmental Programs and Planning, Sean Gilbertson, attended and spoke on the topic of sediment management, along with some of his contemporaries from the Port of Tacoma and one of the more notable consulting firms. Sean shared updates on the port's work on Bud Inlet cleanup, and it was well received. And continuing in trying to highlight some of our port tenants that folks may not be aware are port tenants. So this port tenant highlight is Center Street Karting, which leases almost 3 acres at our Newmarket Industrial Campus. They've been there since 2008, and they are the home to the ultimate indoor trampoline park attraction, Sky Zone. So they operate in a roughly 50,000 square foot building with lots and lots of parking, and they obviously are the source of much fun for kids throughout Thurston County. We also wanted to note that some congratulations are in order for our very own Tabor Lee. He was nominated for the Experience Olympia and Beyond Visitor and Convention Bureau Boldness in Tourism Award. Tabor's efforts, along with that of our communication and outreach team, have done great things for our community, so congrats to Tabor. And then this one is very sad for the port, but we are preparing ourselves mentally and also sort of logistically for the retirement of Clarita Maddox. Officially, Clarita will end her 35-year career at the port at the end of this year, but she's going to take some time between now and then to do some well-earned vacation in addition. Clarita's been our real estate senior manager. And throughout her tenure, she's been a cornerstone of our team. She played an instrumental role in our operations, and she's built lasting relationships within our community. We're so excited that she gets to go off and enjoy her retirement, but we have done so much with her and we will miss her desperately. All right, upcoming events. On Tuesday, October 1st at LP Brown Elementary, Commissioner Harding will be holding a town hall. So please come and join if you would like to ask questions of Commissioner Harding. Our last marine terminal tour of this fall is going to occur on Tuesday, October 1st at 11 a.m. If you would like to join, please visit the port's website and snag one of the last spots. And then on October 2nd, we're having another webinar about our Port Peninsula Integrated Master Plan effort. Will be led by Camille St. Ange, Tabor Lee, and Jonathan Wolf. So please register if you'd like on the port's website and join us for that webinar. And then September event happening. Some of these have already taken place and some are still yet to happen, but we had held the Fufara on the Port Marine Terminal, the Movies at the Marina, the Tumwater Retail and Tourism Visitor Center grand opening. We had a first-time vessel arrival plaque presentation by Commissioner Ayal. We had an employee appreciation lunch out at the Port Plaza, and then that same evening had our valued partner celebration event, both of which took place in amazingly beautiful and maybe a little too hot weather. Then we also have attended the Thurston County Chamber Forum, the Experience Olympia and Beyond annual meeting, and upcoming this week is the Thurston County EDC Real Estate Forum. And before I get to opportunities for public comment, just wanted to mention I did have the opportunity last week to go to Washington, D.C. with colleagues from the State Department of Enterprise Services, Mayor Payne and Jay Burney from the City of Olympia, and then Ray and Chris Peters from the Squaxin Island Tribe. And we visited with Senator Murray's staff, folks from the Department of Agriculture, folks from Marilyn Strickland's office. We met with Derek Kilmer himself. We met with folks from the Department of Commerce, NOAA specifically. They're have given grants for this kind of work and are excited about our collective work related to climate resilience and the Deschutes Estuary Project. Then we also met with Rick Larson's staff, folks at the Army Corps of Engineers, and last but not least, had 40 minutes with Maria Cantwell, who was super supportive and is very enthusiastic about helping us all out. So more to come on that. We're gonna put our heads together when everybody's back in town and see what more we can do about getting some funding. So here are public comment opportunities. We welcome and appreciate your input. So please go to any of these various sites, social media platforms, and let us know what you think. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a lot.
I know, a lot went on when I was gone.
Anyway, yeah, that's good. Any questions or comments for Executive Director Smith? All right, thank you. We'll move on then to our public comment segment. Individual public comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. Members of the public may comment on agenda items and other points. Guidelines for public comment can be found in the commission rules in Resolution 2022-09, Article 6. The comments should be directed to the commission as a whole and should not include comments about individual port staff or members of the public. All speakers shall be courteous in language and demeanor and shall confine remarks to those facts that are germane and relevant to the question or issue under discussion. And I don't have a list of anybody who signed up for public comment, but is there anybody on the Zoom meeting that would like public comment?
Yes, we have Carla Wolfsburg to comment first.
All right, Ms. Wolfsburg, you can hear us, you have the floor.
Am I unmuted now? I hope so.
We
Good
can hear
evening.
you now.
Okay, good evening, commissioners. So I would like to speak to the issue of the warehouse for the marine terminal that was presented to you by Mr. Hendrickson at your August 12th meeting. And I've spoken to you about this before. I still have great concerns about your decision-making process for that investment without having a commitment in writing from Suzano Corporation, who is delivering the so-called product of eucalyptus that will in fact help to pay off that $2.5 million investment. So unless something has changed and you have a commitment from Suzano for the next 5 years, I find it difficult to believe that you would go into that kind of speculation and without other companies also providing some kind of commitment, which is what you're saying, that other companies will come forth and provide more products that will fill the warehouse, even if Suzano doesn't fill it completely, the new warehouse. So I find that very difficult to believe that you would really speculate that way with public money. And I also am concerned about your belief that Suzano is such a green corporation. I have done some research, as I mentioned before, and that corporation in about 6 different countries, Portugal, Brazil, India, Bangladesh, South Africa, and in the US, California and Hawaii, all those areas have imported trees from the native in Australia, and there has been significant environmental concerns in each one of those countries. And it has to do with fire, which is a really serious threat, and also there's no growth underneath these trees, so it doesn't prevent soil from washing to streams and rivers. And also it decreases biodiversity and it takes groundwater away from native species. So I don't see that as a very green product and I don't know how you evaluate green, but that doesn't sound very green to me. So I would hope that you would reconsider that particular product and really do more research on it rather than to just take the word of Suzano, which is that what's on their website, but actually do some more research. And I'm happy to provide you the links to the research that I've done, if that would be of help. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Wolfsburg. Is there anyone else give public comment this evening?
We have John Newman.
John Newman, Mr. Newman. the floor.
Hello, how are you? Hello,
Hello, Mr. Newman.
yes, can you hear me? Hello,
Oh, give us just a moment there, Mr. Newman. We seem to be having technical difficulties.
okay. 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 Hmm.
You still there, Mr. Newman? Mr. Newman?
How are you? Okay, there goes.
There you
Hello.
go. We can hear you. Go right ahead, sir.
Yes, commissioners, how are you this evening? In addition to the many things that constantly go on with the port, on the Port Peninsula, there's been some environmental concerns about toxic fill, et cetera, over the whole port. You know, it'd be relatively simple to statistically analyze the whole peninsula with some core drilling and then have the cores analyzed to solve all the questions about any toxic deposits in the port. You wouldn't have to do every, 200 feet. You could do probably 100 samples, and it would nail things down pretty well. And then it would give us an image for the future. So again, the public still has questions on the Cascade Pole excavation, the cap over there, and where that stuff kind of went when they moved it around. But that's my suggestion. Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you, Mr. Newman. Is there anyone else?
There's Debbie Patton.
Ms. Patton, welcome, and you have the floor.
Hi, sorry I can't be there in person. I got rear-ended last week, so my car's in the shop. But I want to say I just really appreciated the executive director report. It was so exciting to see how much is going on at the port and with our partners, and the trip back to DC. It's just so inspiring to hear that our delegation was able to meet with Senator Murray's staff and with Senator Cantwell in person, and Representative Larson and the Department of Agriculture. That's just thrilling. I'm just so excited about that. And also, we had those two ships in port at the same time, and President Aiel got to go down and give that plaque to that new vessel. It's just thrilling. It's just wonderful for economic development and interagency interaction and commerce, and it's just terrific. So thank you very much for that report.
Thank you, Ms. Patton. Is there any other public comment?
Next, we have Lee Reiner.
All right, Ms. Reiner, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
We can, yes. Go right ahead.
Thank you. Yes, I noted that the Port of Olympia keeps going forward with this issue of having webinars on the master plan effort. Many of us in the community do not think these webinars that are in the middle of the day when most people are working are in lieu of public comment periods or public education or public outreach. Webinars given by the Port of Olympia are not public outreach. They only have a limited group that attends because people are working and people cannot attend these webinars. And also, many of us think that the ability to ask questions about these very complicated issues, the port master plan on the isthmus, especially, very complicated stuff. And we are expected to type in our questions or say it over the webinar. It does not meet the criteria for the public being able to understand a lot of these complicated issues. I know that when Alex Smith was hired as executive director for Port of Olympia, she promised us in our public meeting, we had 60, 70 people jammed into the Port of Olympia meeting space. She promised us that we would have town halls there at the port so that she and other scientists could go through some of the issues regarding these very complicated things that go on at the port. We have not had that. And so we're going on, several months now. I understand that the Port of Olympia commissioners are constantly being lobbied by the Chamber of Commerce. They're constantly being lobbied by the Port Association. But do they ever hear what the port people who want to attend these meetings have to say? No. Now you're only giving us webinars. You don't even have an open meeting where we can discuss these very complicated issues together. So my concern is the webinars are not in lieu of a public meeting, and they should not be considered a public education outreach. I don't have a, I'm also concerned about this warehouse issue, $2.5 million for a eucalyptus group to come in. Eucalyptus is not sustainable, it's not green. It's a horrible idea to bring this into Port of Olympia, yet nobody asks any questions. No port commissioners ask questions. I see no discussion. Very disappointing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Reiner. Any further public comment?
Nope, we don't have any other hands raised.
All right.
I
Yes.
didn't see a sign.
Oh, okay. That's all right. Go right up.
Hi, this is hi. My name is Rochelle Martin. I'm the very proud president of the Thurston Lewis Mason Central Labor Council, where I represent over 26,000 union members in our community. I implore you to work with your union members here to pass a fair contract. The amount of money that you would spend to keep your workers here is far less than it would cost to train new people to come in. The union members here have talked about all over the coast. The Port of Olympia pays less than most everywhere else. So it is so important that they get a fair contract. And it's been a very delayed, very long process that I understand should be coming to an end very soon. So please work with your members and let's just get a fair contract. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Any other public comment tonight?
No more hands are raised.
All right, then we will move on to the consent calendar, which consists of two items now. Minutes from September 9th, 2024 and September 16th, 2024, and bills and vouchers for August 2024, batch number 31 through 35. Is there a motion to approve this evening's consent calendar?
Motion to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve this evening's consent calendar. Calling for the vote. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Moving on to pending issues or business. We have one item this evening, and that is a briefing from the Port of Olympia Citizens Advisory Committee And Joel Hansen, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, and good evening, commissioners. I'm Joel Hansen, Chair of the Citizens Advisory Committee to the Port of Olympia. Currently called the Citizens Advisory, but we'll take a look at maybe changing that name to Community Advisory in the future. I like that idea quite a bit. I just have a really brief update. Things are moving along. You authorized us to form subcommittees. We have formed those subcommittees now, and all of them will begin to meet this week and next to elect chairs and vice chairs and work out future calendars. And we've committed to the public and to you all that we will publish our meeting agendas and our meeting schedules in advance, and that we will take minutes and make those available to the public from all of our subcommittees. Wanted to quickly thank the staff and the director for providing staff support to those subcommittees. So Jonathan Wolf, Camille St. Ange, and Tabor, is it you as well? Yep, Tabor Lee will be supporting those subcommittees, and we really appreciate that investment from the port, and we hope to repay that investment with good work that adds value to these projects and the work that you're doing. Let's see, an update, Deb Patton on the Zoom and others on the POCAC, a few others have formed a nominating subcommittee in line with our resolution. They are now polling members of the POCAC, and at our next meeting in October, we will begin to select a chair and vice chair for next year's calendar. So that is something that's in our resolution, and we're moving forward with that to stay on track there. And then just a quick update. We now, I believe we have a possible 4 vacancies if we wanted to completely fill out the POCAC on the POCAC. And now that we've sorted ourselves into subcommittees, we kind of see where there's maybe room for some more talent in some of these subcommittees that have less folks on them. And so I think now is a good time to engage with the director and vice chair to begin talking about how we want to go about filling those vacancies on POCAC. But we're really excited to be where we're at and moving forward, really digging into some of the biggest issues that the port is working on right now. Happy to take questions.
Do you have any questions or comments for?
Thank you so much. Nope. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
I'm going to go to a Cub Scout meeting. So have a great night.
Thank you for that briefing. All right, moving on. We have nothing under the action calendar. Under action other, we now have the Deschutes Estuary Restoration Project interlocal agreement. Who is going to jump on that one? Okay.
Good evening, Commissioners. John Wolf, Environmental Manager for the Port. Commissioner Harding asked that this be moved off so there could be a discussion. I don't know if you want the presentation or.
I don't think we need the presentation. If
Okay.
anyone else feels that we do. Does anyone else want the presentation? But I think Chair, if we make
Yes.
some comments.
Yes, please.
I just wanted to acknowledge this is a pretty big participation in our Bud Inlet cleanup and the removal of the Fifth Avenue Dam. Over $200,000 a year contribution from the port and over $8 million in the course of the till through 2050. So although I'm totally in favor of using the consent agenda more liberally, I just wanted to take the opportunity to acknowledge that the port is really investing now and in the future in this environmental remediation and working with state and other local governments to make it a comprehensive project. So, and the reason I thought it warranted allowing public comment was just because it seemed like it moved quickly through our agendas because it is a bit of a no-brainer given the other work we have going in, but I wanted to take the opportunity for public to weigh in as well. Thank you for indulging me.
All right, yes. Any other comments or questions?
Thank you, Commissioner Harding. I had the privilege of sitting on the interlocal working group for the Deschutes Estuary Restoration. And really just in the last 6 months or 8 months of that work, because it had preceded me by 4 years, really, and Ms. Pat Newt in the audience might say 20 years, in terms of the work that built up to it. So I just want to add one thing to your comment, which is that this real investment we will make in order to maintain our operations while helping Olympia move forward in restoring the Deschutes estuary and the ecosystem for us all is the beginning of a potential transformation of downtown. And at the same time, the port is not like an endless fund of money. We have some assets we have to use prudently. And so I wanted to hearken to something else that Commissioner Harding had talked about, which is it's really part of what we're doing is figuring out the margin, the business revenues we need in order to pay for our mission. And our mission has really kind of consolidated around restoration and community values. That said, we still need to operate our businesses. And I want to keep telling that story because I think it really is. I'm really proud to be part of an institution that can make such a difference and at the same time can help foot the bill for making that kind of difference. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments?
I would just say, I think it's amazing how many organizations we're partnering with on this agreement. That kind of makes it a no-brainer for me. Again, all the work that's gone into it, but that all these organizations are coming together to do this work and just, again, make the city of Olympia better.
Else? Let's call for public comment then. Is there anyone like to make public comment on the Deschutes Estuary Restoration Project interlocal agreement?
We have Carla Wolfsburg.
All right, Ms. Wolfsburg, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you, commissioners. Well, I just have concerns about it, mainly because the interlocal agreement is really committing the port to an ongoing dredging for the marine terminal, and that's really what it's all about. And of course, that really doesn't have a lot to do with the restoration, if it's a restoration, or the cleanup. That's really about the continuation of the marine terminal. And so committing, starting in 3 years, the port's going to be paying the $200 and some thousand a year for that. And the revenue from the port says they're expecting to get from this, new company coming in and the new warehouse. I just wonder how all these financials work out, and particularly how those fit into a master plan that you've been promoting that is, and I'm quoting from the first webinar, that, that this master plan is going to address sea level rise, habitat, natural shorelines, economic business development, parks and open space, recreation, placemaking, and it's a people-centered approach to planning to enhance the quality of life for people in Thurston County. And I just wonder how the dredging and the marine terminal fits into that master plan. If you're looking at it long-term, if you're looking at the marine terminal long-term, how can you make decisions now when the master plan hasn't even been developed to know what the public really wants about the marine terminal or the peninsula in general? So those are my questions, and I would really like to have you address those for us so that we can understand how you're planning to pay for all of this and how it fits into the master plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wolfsburg. Any other public comment on the?
Yes, we have Joel Hansen.
Oh, Sue, yeah, let's Sue, go right ahead. Jump up there, Sue.
Hi, I'm Sue Patnute. I'm with the Deschutes Estuary Restoration Team. I'm also a member of POCAC, but I'm not speaking for POCAC right now. What Commissioner Vasavit has said and what Carla's saying are very similar. The system that we're dealing with here is a river system that runs into a marine body of water. It's all one thing. You can't separate these things out. What Commissioner Vasavit has said about aligning the mission of the port with this new way of doing business for downtown is absolutely incredibly kind of a perfect way to think about it, so that all the things that the port is spending money on is obviously going to have to shift around a little bit in order to afford this system that's being developed with the environmental needs that we have right now in the community. I'm thrilled and overjoyed that we're at this point with the estuary restoration effort. I can't even begin to tell you. When we started out, well, I never had this kind of hope for anything this big. And to hear the Port Commission now saying, hey, you know, we're going to pay this, we're going to do this, we're going to make this happen is, you know, to me, it's almost a miracle. So I hope that we can all work together to make the system work, not only for the environment, but for the economy, because they're linked. You can't take them apart. You can't. That's all there is to it. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Patnud. Did you have someone else?
We have Joel Hansen.
Joel, all right. All right, Mr. Hanson, you have the floor.
Okay, I hope you can hear me
We can hear you, yes.
right now, so apologies for the sound. But Joel Hanson, I am the chair of the POCAC, but I am speaking only for myself. I want to echo the comments of Sue Patnud that, you know, I was part of the founding board for the EIS on this project, and this whole river system is linked to Bud Inlet, and I'm super excited that we're getting to this point where all the jurisdictions are coming together to support this work through the ILA. And I just want to make sure that I don't miss an opportunity to talk about involving the conservation district in getting out into the watershed and planting the riparian zones to keep material out of the river so that we don't have to dredge it when it gets to the bay. I think it would be wise to spend some money in that way to see if we can reduce the amount of sediment coming down the river system. That's all I got. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hanson. Any other public comment?
No other hands.
I would move to authorize the Port of Olympia's Executive Director, Alex Smith, to sign the interlocal agreement between the Port of Olympia, Washington Department of Enterprise Services, Squaxin Island Tribe, County of Thurston, City of Olympia, City of Tumwater, and the Lock Clean Water Alliance for the shared responsibility of long-term sediment management in Bud Inlet. Okay.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All right, I will call for the vote, and I will ask Commissioner Harding to one more time read her motion.
The motion is to authorize the Port of Olympia's Executive Director, Alex Smith, to sign the interlocal agreement between the Port of Olympia, Washington Department of Enterprise Services, Squaxin Island Tribe, County of Thurston, City of Olympia, City of Tumwater, and the Lock Clean Water Alliance for the shared responsibility of long-term sediment management in Bud Inlet.
All right, thank you very much. So calling for the vote, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you very much. All right, moving on to advisory calendar. One item on the advisory calendar is the 2025 budget for non-operating tax levy uses and community events. Tad Koff, Director of Finance, you have the floor.
Thank you, Commissioner. And thank you, all the rest of the commissioners too. We're going to jump into this here. This is Tad Koff, Director of Finance, Port of Olympia speaking. We're going through, as you said, the budget for non-operating tax levy usage and community events. My presentation will be immediately kind of blended in with Tabor's, who will be covering more of the community events. It's mostly a line item in my slide decks, just a clarification on that. You will notice that in front of you, I added the supplemental policy 1201 pass for reference. It's in my slide deck, paraphrase, but the full 2-page version was requested, so I provided it to all of you. If you care to look at it, it is pretty well paraphrased though. So we will move on To start out, today's presentation is advisory only. There's no action required. We are gonna try and follow what worked pretty well last year with more of a conversational give and take. This is the budget guidelines for the port as a whole. So today is just a chunk of the budget, so to speak. One thing I do want to point out for kind of guide rails along here is at the end of August, August 31st, the port's total of Thurston County was 28,100,000. And we recently after the Kalama meeting, Kalama, I always say it wrong. Kalama, get it right one of these times. Calculated the proposed port revenue, port reserve amount to be 12.6 million. So guide rails of kind of where we are, very wide. The difference of that is 15.5 million. So just as a general keep in mind point. Also, just as a reference, that guideline came from resolution 2015-16, the financial policy calculated for that. Any questions? Moving on. Today, we're going to go through that tax levy and non-operations, which is going to cover membership and partner costs. We have done a little bit of a change from last year with governmental services replacing the commission expense. Every time that I would bring commission up as a budgetary line item, everyone immediately assumed it was just paying commissioners, which it is not. So to alleviate that confusion and make it a little bit better and meaningful narrative, we're changing that to government services. We'll go into that in detail. Tax levy calculation, also have that in detail worked out with the treasurer, or Thurston County, the debt review, and then questions and comments. The policies and procedures, policy 1201 basically covers the utilization of the tax levy. I'm not going to read through the entire thing, but the highlights of it outlines what the port plans to use the levy for. And the largest parts of that would be general obligation or the debt service payments, environmental costs, and then we go down to real estate acquisition, if there are real estate acquisitions and special projects. There are some other items in there as capital asset acquisitions, and then a couple others with operating maintenance, public spaces, roads, and facilities. Any questions on the policy? Yes.
I have a question, Tad. I'm the one who asked for the policy. There's a section that says spending limitations. In general, the port will limit its transfers to bond reserve and real estate funds to an amount that is no more than the annual tax levy amount. Can you translate that to me, for me? I guess I'm asking, does that set a limit on what gets put into a real estate acquisition fund, or? And you can come back.
Well, I only have the paraphrased version in front of me. I don't have the one I gave you. That's why I'm looking at it. Can you read it one more time and I will answer?
Well, it just has it says in general, the port will limit its transfers to bond reserve and real estate funds to an amount that is no more than the annual tax levy amount.
I'm going to have to go back to, I will have to research exactly what that means as far as the application of it goes. It's part of a policy that's from 2015 when that was originated. So I don't want to misspeak and give you the wrong idea.
And it may be more relevant in our budget conversations to come. So it can be.
Certainly.
That time.
Certainly.
And then the question that I emailed about is just operation and maintenance of public facilities where user fees are set below cost, such as the Port Pavilion. Can you give me examples of where we have user fees that are set below cost?
I believe that the way I read that line seemed to be specific in notion when it was created. We're going to want to take a look and see what that applies to, but I can say that it's not a Port Pavilion as it's worded. We believe it's the Port Plaza, and the Port Plaza does get rented out. There are various things that the port will lease out I will have to look into what criteria we would be able to use to create a level that you'd compare it to say that we are charging less than, meaning it would be a unique Port Plaza, unique to here. So setting a level saying we're charging too little or under a market rate would be hard to set that level of comparison. So I'm going to have to look at that and the way that's defined.
Isn't it essentially saying we can subsidize our assets?
Yeah, we could.
Yes, and Commissioner Harding, the reason I ask these questions is because as we talk about further development of our waterfront and the issue of kind of what, as we create public amenities, knowing the extent to which we are choosing to subsidize them, I think becomes important. So if, for example, in our real estate portfolio, we have carry Port Percival Landing as an asset that we operate for the community and it's at a certain loss every year. I think understanding that is quite important as we look to possibly deepening that kind of investment on the peninsula.
No, I agree completely. And transparency in the intent is important. And that's what I don't want to mistake in the wording, in that sometimes when you make something comparative, it's the statute or standard that you compare it to, and setting that difference, meaning how much of a discount we are subsidizing, becomes an arguable point, so to speak. So I want to make sure that when I respond, it's clear.
So the last thing is, can you work with staff on the operations side and across the business division to come back to us if there is a list of facilities that we are consciously operating with user fees below cost?
Certainly.
I would like that to come before the commission for our awareness.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Excellent question. I move on to the tax levy. This is the calculated and proposed tax levy usage for 2025. You'll see the 2024 levy amount was 7.778 million. 1% increase on that calculated out adds $78,565. And also the increase for new construction would add another $121,067 to it, totaling a proposed increase of $199,632, which is staff's recommendation to take the 1% and the construction increase. There is no banked amount. And interestingly enough, the millage rate, which is the rate per $1,000 of assessed value that individuals pay in Thurston County, has actually gone down. It's an inverse relationship with the valuation of the properties, and the properties that were assessed total value was roughly 59 million and change 59 billion and change last year, and is now $64 billion of assessed value. So as that has gone up enough to offset, the actual millage rate has gone down. Does that make sense? Okay. It's just a good point to educate how that works. Also, last year we had Thurston County's treasurer himself come out and give a presentation on this. He is unavailable tonight. He's out of town. I am going to try and get him lined up for the follow-up meeting on this subject before we move on to other sections of the budget. Any questions?
So you said no banked amount. Does that mean there's no banked amount available, or we're just choosing not to use?
No, there's not. We don't have any banked dollars available.
One last question. Is that okay with your permission? Tad, also, when you come back to talk about this, it's helpful for me to know if you talked about the average property owner in Thurston County as the mean.
Sure.
What their payment is.
Is there a dollar amount that you have an idea, like let's say $250,000 home, something along those lines?
I was hoping you'd determine the mean property tax.
I think they're using, it's around $400,000 home, and then it's X dollars that goes to the port. That's what you're asking.
Because that's how we tend to translate it when we're talking to the public.
Well, if it were, I can do the math almost in my head. If it's $400,000, it would be 1,000 multiplied by 4 times the 0.124. So 0.124 times 1,000 would move it over I'll
Oh my
I'd grab it.
God.
You know, I'm not gonna do that. I'd grab a calculator and do it. But anyway, yes, we'll come back with it.
Is that it is a small piece of the pie when you receive your assessment.
Yeah.
And it's a small number, so I think that illustrating that is helpful.
We will answer that. I won't do the math in my head.
That every dollar isn't important.
No, it definitely is.
It is.
To contextualize it for
yeah.
the average.
Will do. Any other questions on the tax levy slide?
No, sir.
Next. So we're gonna get more granular in how we look at where that then goes. So that breakdown. This is, I'm sorry if this is a little bit hard to read, but it's needed to get on here is the breakdown of where I mentioned the utilization of that 7.978 million. Again, we start out with principal and debt being paid on interest of 4.231 million. It is worth noting that after we had done the defeasance, that not only affected 2027, but also affected this year and next year as well, in that it has reduced the amount that we would have had, or we were running in every year by $385,000. So we've actually reduced the amount of debt that we were going to be paying in 2025 by that amount, having taken that other action. The debt, again, top line item, then we move on to environmental expense. Environmental expense has gone up a bit. The Cascade Pole standing at $972,000. Environmental administration, just over $1 million at 1.027 million. And then Bud Inlet remediation, port share only at 2.2 million. I will put a caveat before those questions come out that we are investigating grants to cover that. So this is what I know now and can present as a fact. Those may change, or that may change as circumstances evolve. Last year for Bud Inlet, the big change was that was a roughly $500,000. So that's the difference between this year's budget and that budget. Moving on to government services. Government services again has changed from commission expense. And so I've got another slide that will outline this specifically, but this is now at 1,000,732 for government services. And government services, the equivalent last year would have been 1.037 million. So the increase is 695,000 as an increase across the board. And I do have the details that'll be coming up as what makes that up. Let's see here. We got small cities that is unchanged at $40,000.
I have a question on
Yes.
let's be 50 because we added Rochester Grand Mound. So it's Bucota, Rainier, Tenino, Yelm, and last year for the first time we added Rochester / Grand Mound, which would be 50.
Yelm opted out, didn't they?
I didn't know that.
That Yelm did opt out, but I will look at that so we can keep it at 50, even though it didn't get fully utilized.
Yelm opted out indefinitely?
No, it's new every year.
Oh, okay. So from a budgeting perspective, we should still be using 50.
I'll add it back up to 50. Community events, I believe were largely unchanged from last year. And then membership and partner costs, I've got a separate itemized list, and that is also increased, but I'll give you the definition or the amount from that. That's at 175. So tax levy usage, total use of taxes is 10,434,000 proposed, with coming from either operations or reserves 2.4656 million. Yes.
Just, I think everyone else understands this. So this is your proposed use for the new budget of tax levies
Yes.
for the new budget year that we're gonna enter, 2025.
Mhm.
And we may have some ideological differences up at the dais, but the environmental administration dollars here, we've brought this up before, so I want to confirm with you that if there's environmental costs directly attributable to an existing ongoing business line. So say stormwater treatment at the marine terminal. That's not, is that being put in this number or is that being put in the division budget for that business line?
Is that specifically with the Bud Island in restoration, the inlet number, or overall?
So I understand there are legacy costs that we are bearing on behalf of the whole community in order to make things right. And that includes Cascade Pole and the Bud Inlet remediation. In the middle, there's environmental administration. And my question previously and repeatedly has been, as we move towards even better transparency, which you've been fundamental in giving us, is are we lumping into that cost the cost of environmental compliance within the airport with its, you know, for its existing ongoing business within the marine terminal, within the marina? Because there are those, I think I am committed to making it transparent how those business lines are operating. And the private sector doesn't get to just say, oh, our environmental costs are going to go somewhere else.
As far as the environmental administration side, I'm going to have to look into it and make sure that I give you the correct answer.
Director Smith, you understand this question?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I got it.
I do as well. Any other questions on this? No, that's.
Is it an appropriate time to make a comment or?
Sure.
I would just note that this is a net loss based on essentially the significant contributions to Bud Inlet remediation. And I think to Commissioner Basavada's point, we need to be looking at our margin and our business lines if we're going to continue to support such large mission-driven projects, or we're going to be running into budget challenges. So I know we all know that, but I think it should be front of mind for all of us.
Agreed. Any other questions? And again, this is the give and take at this point. So this is expected that we're going to have, I'm going to be adding the section of IOUs. So we're going to have tracking of the questions that come up, modifications to the presentation and presented budget as it goes as well. Next slide. The summary of governmental services. So this is the detail going behind the governmental services. This has always been there behind the commission slide, but we've broken out with a little more detail so you can really see what's going on. Last year, salaries and benefits was combined with membership and partners fees. I've split that out so you can see those distinctly. I thought that was made it a little hard to track. Legal fees stays the same at 100,000, and salaries and benefits is only up budgetarily wise, I think $25,000. So it's fairly flat. Legal's flat. Professional fees has gone up. It was $222,000 last year. The proposal is $700,000 with most of that, the vast majority of the master plan cost involved in there. That's what the big change is, and some extra dollars for supplemental costs associated with that. Harbor Patrol has stayed the same at 33,000. Public amenities has gone up from 65,000 to 130,000. Just added items in there as well. Camille St. Onge is here with any detail should you want to dig further into that particular item as well. We have 5,000 for public affairs. Membership and partner fees is 175,000. I do have a schedule that breaks that down in the next slide. However, I've done some condensing of areas where it was $600 here, $50 there. I think that at this point at the commission level, slightly more condensed version is easier to follow, and I don't think you need to vote on $50. We can move on to meeting expenses at 25,000. Equipment and telecom broadcast at 10,000. Those were combined before, so now you can see basically it's running a room and running the equipment. So they're broken out. POCAC is at 2,500. That's down a little bit from last year. Facilities rentals is at 35,000, and the travel budget is up at 52, which is up significantly over last year, with a proposed $32,000 add for a trade mission, if that should happen or not, or might happen or not. And that adds us up to the 1,730,000 for governmental services. Questions?
I'd like to know more about professional services and what that all entails for your IOU list. You don't have to list it all out here now.
Okay.
It's a big jump.
That is, Ma'am, would you like to talk about professional services in the jump?
Yes, so thank you for asking the question. The professional services increase significantly as the master plan costs are falling under that. And we are estimating that it's $500,000. So last year, we brought forward $200,000 in that line item. And so we've increased it $500,000 in order to accommodate for the master plan. The other types of professional services have typically been for, it could be for facilitation. It could be if, for example, if we are doing strategic planning and you would like to hire facilitation for that or publish materials that go with your strategic initiative, if there's any developer work that would accompany that, or if there's additional consulting services that the commission identifies or the executive director identifies throughout the year.
Thank you, Camille.
Thank you, Camille. Any other questions on this breakdown? Okay. So we're on to membership and partner cost detail. This is largely made up of Chamber of Commerce memberships, other associations like the WPPA, which is budgeted at 29,000 here, but I think it's going to end up going up to 34,000, somewhere in there. But I don't have that final number, so I can't, it's not added in yet. But that might be a variance as well. Things that are under the Chamber of Commerce combined area would be Lacey, Thurston, Yelm, all in the 8,000. I'm sorry, Yelm was 820. Thurston County's 21,000. Actually, it's the vast majority of it. And then Yelm is 600. Tumwater's 600, and rounded up by a few others. I'm sorry. Okay. New in 2025 is the Thurston County EDC for $40,000. Lacey Makerspace for $25,000, and we have the Thurston County Chamber of Commerce is up from the $750 to that $21,000 because it was just under budgeted last year. We didn't have the cost in there correctly. So that is the change for those. So that adds up to the $175 overall. Are there any questions on the makeup of our membership and partner cost details? Nope. Hearing nothing, I will move on. And we are on to an easy slide. Special projects. This is basically a placeholder right now. We don't have any known special projects from the commission. Should they arise during this budgetary process, we will add them in.
Just a question for, well, talking through you to my commissioners on this is that we have this master plan process. And so specific projects, it's hard to move them forward without getting ahead of the master plan. But perhaps we can budget a placeholder here if we think the master planning process will be completed in May of this coming year, and maybe it's going to get pushed a little farther. I would love to consider budgeting a placeholder so that we can start on something that seems to have broad community consensus. Don't know
You
when's
have
the
an
time.
amount?
Yeah, I didn't, if now's the time, I would propose that we put in a $250,000 placeholder in this.
Likely to be used for planning of some kind.
Well, possibly for implementation consistent with the master plan. Yeah, early project specification design. Earlier, I was very interested in starting on funding the amphitheater work, like to have a regular performance space up at North Point. we have some proven value. It doesn't make sense though to put that as a specific line item if we're not clear that that's going to be an outcome of the master plan. However, I'd hate it to be that we have the master plan in hand June and it's like, well, wait for next year to get started.
Absolutely. Will do.
Well,
Yeah, second that.
okay.
Well, there's no vote. I can add it in as an IOU and add it in so that the numbers, so you can see what it looks like. So the plan is I'll add that in and we will,
Terrific.
because we're going to revisit this section again.
Thank you.
I'll make the adjustments and also add answers to the questions and queries that have been raised. On to what got a lot of attention last year and should look very much nicer this year, the budget, the debt review. So the outstanding debt balance total for the port is roughly 21.5 million as of the beginning of 2025. These figures represent the combined principal and interest due, and it might be difficult to read, but we are floating right around 4.3 million for 25, 26, and 27. We defease the large $5+ million balloon payment that we were facing in the next couple of years. In so doing, we also managed to knock about $300,000 to $400,000 off of each year's debt service as well. We stand in a few years at really having an opportunity to gain back some purchasing power and financial power for the port. So that's the headline here. And I hate to do it, but collectively pat ourselves in the back for, I think, an excellent job on that area. So any questions on the outstanding debt?
We'll be talking about the possibility of using bond debt for our long-range planning for our environmental remediation costs.
It certainly could be on the table if you'd like me to investigate that.
I just know that one of the things that you're working on is how are we going to pay for our obligations? And I'm curious how it fits in with whether or not that's a possibility, what that would look like. As you're exploring options, because I don't know what the other options are, so.
Okay.
We'll come back to, I mean, I think debt is an option. We have a lot of room in terms of debt capacity. I think we've got up to like 90 million.
Roughly that, yeah.
90 million debt capacity. And then we take a look at what that would mean in terms of debt service. But I think we want to also exhaust other options before we, as well, so we can prevent even an array of options.
And is there a plan for hearing about the funding of that projection of funding of our environmental remediation? Is that?
I think first, there's a lot of unknowns because we still need to get the results of the sampling to really know how much we need to dredge. That's the biggest cost. And so we're finding, as I think the Commissioner of Salvador heard from some folks in the Port of Tacoma, that they're learning that sediment sites are actually naturally recovering at faster rates than they thought. And so initial estimates for our cleanup were based on sampling that was done 5 to 10 years ago. And the current sampling is showing lower levels of contamination than they'd expected. And so I think we need to, we don't really know what the cost estimate will be until we know how much we need to dredge. And that's still a year or two away. John's left, but yeah, it's about a year or two away.
One thing to keep in mind then that I could do around that point when we get a little bit more fine tuned is I could do something like a scenario modeling like we did for the debt defeasance of offering what it would look like under different possibilities when we kind of get a range that you want to play with, so to speak.
Yeah, it sounds like that's a ways out, but I think when that would be helpful later.
Can you remind us when we expect the West Bay sampling, especially in the turning basin, to be complete?
That will be complete in, I think, towards the end of 2026 with a report in 2027. Yeah, so we have a couple years left.
And that may be the bigger cost, right?
Any questions specifically on this? I do have a little more information. That's just the graphic. I don't have it blown up from last year because it's fairly straightforward, but I did want to share and just for the record as well that what those bonds are being used for. I've had this slide up before, but I've tweaked it for interest and principal remaining on those slides and what they went to, kind of large, big picture items. I think that's always interesting to know what the port's invested in and what it's paying for. Any questions? Mostly informational. So we're on to the remaining timeline for this budget set of meetings. We are going to be in September 23rd. We're revisiting our non-operating tax levy use. So we will come back with the IOUs answers in the interim. If there are any other items that you wish to interject or add or question, please feed them to me and we will do so. Followed by October 14th with the non-operating budget and tax levy. And then we move through it in the capital operations, a couple visits on that. And then we work our way through until we get to the final project product in November 25th when the budget and tax levy resolutions are adopted. Questions on the schedule? Very concentrated faces I'm seeing, but no questions. Okay. That is it for this round. Any other general questions and comments? I will
move on.
I will cede the floor to Tabor.
Hello, good evening. I am obviously not Emily Gurdon. I'm Tabor, so Marketing Communications Senior Manager, and I'll be presenting on 2025 community events in the absence of Emily. Started. So reminder, today's presentation is an advisory only. Community events and requests and recommendations is what we'll go over. Take a second and look at the snapshot of 2024 events. There was a lot that happened. It was a really good year when it comes to the amount of events we did, our participation. Thanks to all the commissioners and staff who did participate and worked really hard. It's kind of great to look at this slide. We do a lot. We do quite a bit, and maybe some of these will refresh some memories from earlier this year. So why do we do these events, right? It is a community benefit. And we're going to talk about the whole process and whatnot. But really, there's a multitude of benefits here. Obviously, the community engagement being one of them when it comes to these events. We're always focused on connectivity and ways to be more transparent and establish that trust and really provide an experience. When it comes to these events, you know, the opportunities for the community to experience the waterfront, the peninsula, and even out at the airport. These are properties that a lot of people don't get to see, and we create these really awesome experiences on the waterfront for everybody. There are also promotional opportunities for the Port of Olympia. We're able to talk about our current and future projects at a lot of these events, which creates more public engagement and involvement opportunities and job opportunities, and really that idea of the benefits of your port, to the community. What is your port? These are educational opportunities, talk about our business lines, environmental efforts, and so on. So kind of the meat and potatoes is kind of a learning here on how do we go about these events, not only the events that the port puts on, but the ones that we support. It's really through an application process. When it comes to the applications, one, it's available on our website. So we encourage a lot of organizations to go to our website and fill out the application itself. To qualify for the funding, the following must be met. Obviously, it needs to align with the port's mission. The mission is creating economic opportunities and building community for all of Thurston County through responsible resource use. I've said that so many times. Yeah, and then it's got to positively market the port's businesses and provide advertising opportunities for us. And then the process is the applicants must apply by August 15th for consideration for the following year's budget. So all applications are in currently, and we'll go over those and who they are. And then the outreach staff, myself included, and Emily Gurdon, present to the commission. This time it's September, not October. So sometime during the fall. That's how the process goes typically. Kind of a recap. You saw that slide with all the events. We're looking at 13 events were conducted. So 13 events we were able to give dollar amount to cash contributions. 8 of those events took place on port property. So that's really neat. And then again, when I say our events, the port events, those are specifically the summer nights at the port, which we added 1. We used to do 2, we added 1. We had a lot of community input and basically asks, can we do more? And we listened and we did. And we got record attendance in 2 of them. Movies at the Marina was a huge success. I think Alex mentioned that in her ED report. Almost nearly 400 people attended. Big reason why we believe we moved it later in the summer, so it could get darker, and we moved the times up to 8 p.m. And so we learned, and there was success because of that. So we're going to continue to do those as well. And here we go. These are our 2025 applications. Some you might be familiar with, others you might not be. There's some new ones on here that we didn't get this year or that we didn't have last year. And some that that you might be familiar with that we did bring. They applied and they got it. The Shoestring Circus, which was a great success this year. Community Roots Oral History Project, that's new to this year. And East Meets West and the Footsteps of Marco Polo. So these are organizations that went on our website, applied. We went through the scoring system. They met all those criteria that we just talked about, and they were granted $1,500, which we'll get into the weeds here, right here. So I think you might have this sheet separate, but for those that are able to zoom in, there's some columns that we just want to quickly look at here. So these organizations go through the website and they have a requested cash amount that they want from the port. There are policies and procedures. Our proposed cash contributions, we can't exceed $1,500. So no matter what they ask, you can look at some of these. The air shows asking for $5,000. That's what they requested. The port is able to give them a $1,500 cash contribution. But then you look at the columns next to them, those are our in-kind donations. So we're able to give quite a bit more when it comes to the in-kind aspect, more than just cash. And you can see all the variances associated with each of them. I'll let you sit on that for a second. Obviously, when we say our events, those are those 5 that we talked about, but we're also heavily associated with the others. It's a lot of coordination with the staff. There's a lot of dollars tied to that aspect. I kind of want to pause here if anyone has any questions on it, but yeah.
I have a broad question about these community events. I understand the ones that take place on our property, that we're sort of providing a place for convening the event.
Yeah.
For the ones where we are contributing as a community member, purely cash, no in kind, right? Is it just sort of like a public affairs? This is how we partners in our community. It's almost like it's just a relationship branding for the port.
Yeah. So, all the ones that you're describing, let's just take Ole on Ice, right? There's one that describes exactly what you just said. They went on the application. They went on the website to fill out the application. We did not go and seek and say, can we sponsor you? They took initiative and went to the site and understood that if they reach out to us before, at the August 15th mark, we'll go through the scoring system. As long as it meets those criterias, right? Those benchmarks, we're able to then support them.
And then do they list us as a supporting sponsor?
Absolutely.
Side of the ice rink?
Yeah, in that criteria, it says part of the criteria in the scoring system is that they do sponsor or they do advertise the Port of Olympia. So whether it's a banner or maybe they give us a speaking opportunity, and that's through just an open discussion with them. Everyone comes up with different ideas and concepts, and we can go deeper into that too. And maybe Ole on Ice, you want to skate around, give the commissioners an opportunity to skate around. Any opportunity to advertise the port is what we're getting at. So
that's not
good advertising, Terry.
it could be great. You never know until we do it. Exactly. Right.
It's a fundraiser for Director Smith. Watch Director Smith skate.
Oh, don't put thoughts into my head. Things happen. Things will happen.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
My question was very, naive, but I understand.
Yeah, no, it's perfect. This is
a limit that is put on this, or
Yeah, so we've budgeted, the limit would be based off of the budget, which we've budgeted $57,000 for, which Tad did talk about as a line item that we budget. Now, if we wanted to up that, right? Let's say 75,000, we wanted to move that budget to because we see the value in this. That's where then we would be able to accept more applicants.
Is the budget the cash contribution or does it include the income?
The cash contribution.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, yeah.
I guess what I'm trying to get at is, were there applications that would qualify? But we maybe had to eliminate because they wouldn't fall under the budget.
We haven't been faced with that situation and scenario, so that could happen, right? If we got an influx, you know, obviously everyone's listening to this this meeting tonight, and we're going to get a huge influx next year, right? So that could be a scenario where 30 organizations reach out and they meet the criteria, and we're at a standstill of saying, you know, we've reached our budget amount, allocation amount for the 1,500, which is why we keep it at the 1,500. We want to be very equitable in this.
And so whether it's the shoestring circus or the Olympic Air Show, we don't actually directly earn revenues from sharing the port property on these events.
Zero.
Zero.
It's all in kind. All those extra dollars, those other columns. Yeah. There's a little further breakdown here, may or may not trigger some more questions or help support any thoughts you might have on this. But this is really the guide for the events budget. As far as a breakdown, I can read it and you guys can read it as well, but we can kind of break it down up to 1% of the 2023 gross operating revenue totaling 190. So it hasn't closed out. That's why it says 2023. Cash contributions not to exceed 30% of that 190,000. The remainder is used for in-kind staff support promotional items. So I think that's Commissioner Ayala, you asked that question and there's the answer. Of that 30%, and there's the 57,000 that we talked about for the budget of this, 10%, just equates to about $5,700, will be set aside for opportunities that arise throughout the year. So there might be an applicant tomorrow that reaches out. And because they didn't hit that August 15th deadline, we might want to evaluate that. And that would then go to our executive director. Alex Smith would have that opportunity to then grant that extra little, somewhere in the $5,000. So sometime basically from any time now through until we do this again, there's opportunities, some small opportunities to support other events throughout the year. These are all calculations per the resolution. Any questions on that one? It's pretty, I don't want to say self-explanatory, but this is a good time to talk through it.
So you may have already said this in the beginning, but so this program is all part of the port policy, which I guess, how long has this port policy been in effect? And
2015.
Is it just 2015?
Yeah.
Well,
So
I think the port has been in sort of the business of supporting different events for a long time, much longer than 2015. But I think the specific policy that led to this calculation and how we divvy up money was strike.
Well, it seems pretty specific, your guidelines on it. I guess I was just curious because I don't remember going through this at this level. So I'm just kind of curious how that all came up. So.
Point of privilege. I mean, my memory is that our former, at least interim director, strongly believed that policies were internal matters for administration. And when I requested an opportunity to see them, they were not made available. I have not wanted to bring that up with Director Smith because I'm worried about her taking time away from all the work we're doing to sort of compile and make policies visible. I would not make that an urgent request, but at some point.
This is all part of being more transparent for IL. So.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Dave.
yeah, absolutely. If there's any other questions or discussions, but I like the more candid back and forth during the slides. But yeah, that's the presentation for community events and how we go about it and how and we encourage you to reach out to other organizations and say, we'd love to support you.
I think you just told us why you have one of the best jobs in Olympia.
The best. Period. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's Open it up for public comment. Is there any public comment on this evening's advisory calendar, which is the 2025 budget for non-operating tax levy uses and community events? Any public comment? All right, we will move on then to commissioner reports and discussion. Commissioner Tong, anything you would like to share this evening?
I just wanted to share that while I missed the employee appreciation event, I do really appreciate all of the employees. As I've gotten to know you all over this past, almost year that I've been here, I'm really impressed. Tabor, you're out there almost winning community awards and organizing all these amazing events. Camille, everything you do. And then Tad, you said we should all pat ourselves on the back. That was you. So, and not just the people in this room, there's so many, Emily and others that I know, Missy, and so many that are supporting us and working so hard every day. So thank you all.
Nice, thank you.
Hand raised for public comment.
Oh, we do? Okay.
Carla Wolfsburg.
All right, Ms. Wolfsburg, you have public comment? Not hearing you.
Okay, I'm sorry, the unmute button didn't come up right away. So I just wonder, with regards to the criteria, if there's any criteria that that discusses the location of the applicant within the county to give representation throughout the county, and also diversity and ethnicity. I wonder if those are any part of the criteria. I didn't see the criteria particularly, so I'm just curious about that, because I think that would be important to include, so that it really is a fair representation of the applicants. So it's not all going to, one particular location, say Olympia resident applicants, but elsewhere as well. That's my question. Thank you.
Yeah. Ms. Wolfsburg. We can get back to her on that. All right, thank you. Commissioner Sanders, anything for reports or discussion?
Yes, I attended the Olympia and Beyond Award in recognition of our great friend Tabor Lee, and that was exciting to see him there and supporting him in his nomination, and also just being out in Tenino and supporting everyone else with Commissioner Harding. So that was really awesome, and that's about it.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Vasavia.
Thank you. I just have three things to share. One is I want to congratulate our director and staff for launching an advisory committee for our master planning and waterfront work. And kind of put a plug for how you're going to keep the commission really connected to that engagement, because I think it's really important that commissioners not be separated from that input. Second, I want to congratulate everyone on the hiring of a new marina director. And I don't think they've come before us yet, but now that you're back, I'm hoping that they will. And that we can start to look, as they're onboarded, to maybe some engagement with the constituency in Swantown Marina, who may have questions about all this Bud Bay Inlet remediation and how it's going to impact them. I know that some members of our liveaboard community had contacted me when I was first elected, and I have not yet visited with them. So I would love to kind of get that going. And then the third is so much public comment on the warehouse. I really appreciate how engaged so many members of our community have been, the temporary structure at the marine terminal. And I just wanted to share that Alex has offered that staff will prepare kind of more of a written memo to substantiate that budget request. And so for those of you who are paying attention, you've been heard with your request for a little more visibility, and I think staff will be working on that. So thank you again.
Commissioner Vasavia. Commissioner Harding, you have anything?
I just want to circle back on the sinking vessel in West Bay that is still sinking, and just let the community know that that is something. I reached out to our marina staff because I wasn't sure if there was something we could do, and they are so on it. The Harbor Patrol has notified the Coast Guard, who notified DNR, and there are a lot of jurisdiction issues. It is in DNR's jurisdiction to remove the vessel, but this is something that we as a commission are going to continue to work on because it is both a human and environmental issue on many fronts. So just kind of public shout out to our marina staff and our Harbor Patrol for being on top of that, even though it was outside of our purview. I am doing my very first town hall. Thank you to Camille and Tabor. I'm in my 3rd year of service and this is my first one, and I regret that I haven't done one previously, but I would really like to create at least twice a year town hall cadence for members of the public who prefer that format. And I'm excited to be at LP Brown Go Eagles. That is where I went to elementary school. That is where my nephew goes to elementary school. So I'm excited to be at LP Brown. And my quote is a little bit long today, but it's a good one. So this is from Abraham Hicks. Bob, our chair, are you, this is. Our chair, because he always, I always give him something to chew on with my quotes. Even in your rightness about a subject, when you try to push your rightness toward another who disagrees, no matter how right you are, it causes more pushing against. In other words, it isn't until you stop pushing that any real allowing of what you want can take place. So that is my quote of the day. Helpful. But it's a good one.
It is a good one. I was actually kind of involved in a lesson this morning that was pertains exactly to that. All right, thank you everybody for that. Where are we at here? Let's move on to other business. Is there any other business this evening? Hearing none, we'll jump into the meeting announcements. Executive Director Smith.
All righty, we have upcoming in 2 weeks' time, another regular commission meeting at 5:30 p.m. here in our Olympics room. October 15th is the Citizens Advisory Committee meeting, also in this room as well. That's at 6 p.m. On October 21st at 3:30, we have a commission work session, again, here at the Olympics room. And on October 28th, we have our regularly scheduled commission meeting at 5:30 p.m. That's it.
Questions or comments on the schedule? No, hearing none. Any final things for the good of the order? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned.